Hello, today we're going to talk about conditional sentences part 1. The aim of these presentations are the following. We're going to introduce two types of conditional sentences, zero and first conditional. We're going to have a look at the rules of formation, and we're going to have a look at the uses of these sentences. Finally, we're going to provide some practice to illustrate the theory just explained. Let's begin by having a look at zero conditionals. We normally use zero conditionals to talk about general truths and scientific facts. In zero conditionals, we normally have two clauses, the if clause and the result clause. The if clause talks about the condition, and the result clause talks about what happens if the condition occurs. We normally use the present simple in both clauses. Let's have a look at the examples on the screen. Some examples of zero conditionals are the following. If air expands, it becomes lighter. Here we have an if clause, if air expands, and then the result clause, it becomes lighter. As you can see, we use the present simple in both sentences, the if and the result clause, expands and becomes. Other examples are the following. If you mix green and blue, you obtain yellow. If you heat water at 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. Okay, there are other uses of zero conditional. We can also use zero conditionals to talk about personal habits and recurrent events. Recurrent events are situations that happen again and again, and which are always true for the speaker. For example, if I eat chocolate at night, I always get a stomach ache. If I'm traveling a long way, I always fly. If I don't go swimming twice a week, I always get a backache. We normally use the present simple, but we can also use the present continuous in the if clause. Use the present simple in the result clause. So as you can see in the examples on the screen, we have eat, present simple, in the if clause, I'm traveling, present continuous, in the if clause, and again present simple in the if clause. And then for the result clauses, we have the present simple, get, fly, and get. Sometimes you can also use modal verbs in the result clause. Let's have a look at an example. If you water the plants regularly, they can live longer than expected. Or, the crops might become more resistant if we use the right pesticide. In these two sentences, we have the modal verb can, here they can live longer, and the modal verb might, both in the result clause. And we always use the present simple in the if clause, water and use. Now let's have a look at the first conditional. We normally use the first conditional to talk about what will happen under certain conditions in the future. In this case, the if clause states the condition, and the result clause states the result. Let's have a look at the example. If we reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases, the planet will be a healthier place to live. So in this case, we have the if clause, if we reduce, and then the result clause, the planet will be a healthier place to live. Okay, you can begin conditional sentences with the if clause or with the result clause. The meaning is the same. Let's have a look. You can say, if we start using renewable energies, we will save resources. Or, we will save resources if we start using renewable energies. Just remember not to mix the verb tenses. This means that you always use the present simple in the if clause, if we start, and then you use the future with will in the result clause, will save. Sometimes you can use unless instead of if to state a negative condition. For example, if you don't keep weeding, the tomatoes won't flourish. If we want to express the same sentence with unless, this is the result. Unless you keep weeding, the tomatoes won't flourish. So remember that in this sentence, unless you keep weeding, we are stating a negative condition. In this respect, unless often has the same meaning as if not. Okay, and now let's have a look at some practice to illustrate the theory. Complete the following sentences with the correct form of the zero or first conditional. Remember that first of all, you have to decide which conditional type you are going to use. And then, you have to use the right form of the verb. Okay, A. If we not look after the planet, hundreds of species not survive in the upcoming years. B. If I water the plants regularly, they thrive even in adverse conditions. C. If I have to feed the animals, I always get up before dawn. D. Unless governments devise plans for the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions, we not be able to reduce pollution. E. If I buy veggies in this village, I normally go to the organic farm round the corner. Next one. If you get in touch with infected surfaces, you may get avian flu. And the last one. If you lower the temperature in the thermostat, you save energy at home. So now have a go. And here come the solutions. If we don't look after the planet, hundreds of species will disappear in the upcoming years. In this case, we have an example of conditional type first. So we use the present simple, don't look, and the future in the result clause, will disappear. Let's have a look at the next one. If I water the plants regularly, they will thrive even in adverse conditions. Again, this is an example of a first conditional with present and future. If I have to feed up the animals, I always get up before dawn. In this case, we have an example of a zero conditional. You could think that this is a habit of the speaker. This means that whenever he has to feed the animals, he always gets up before dawn. So remember, you use present simple and present simple, both in the if and the result clause. Let's have a look at the next one. Unless governments devise plans for the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions, we won't be able to reduce pollution. In this case, you have an example of a first conditional. This means that if the condition in the if clause occurs, this is the result. Okay, we will be able to reduce pollution. Next one, if I need to buy veggies in this village, I normally go to the organic farm round the corner. Again, this is an example of zero conditional. This is a recurrent event. So we use present simple and present simple in the if and result clause. Next one, if you get in touch with infected surfaces, you may get avian flu. In this case, we have an example of first conditional type with the use of a modal verb, may get, in the result clause. And the last one, if you lower the temperature in the thermostat, you will save energy at home. This is another example of a first conditional type. And this is all for today. Thank you very much.